Bible, what we see is that the people that follow God, there's really a two-step process. They hear God's voice, and then they respond to Him. So if you look at Abraham, he heard God's voice, and then he responded. So there's this relationship between God and the disciple, follower, that involves those two things. You think about hearing, responding, or just listening and obeying. So God reaches out to someone, He speaks, and then that disciple talks back and begins to obey. And as that happens, the connection just grows and grows and grows deeper and deeper. Now, one of the things that God over and over again tells us to do, tells us to reach out and make disciples of others. So as that happens, as we say yes to God again, we reach out to a new disciple, maybe somebody that has never heard about Jesus before. Now, not everyone will respond, but some will respond, and then a connection is established. But we have to remember that it's not really us making the disciple. It says we're Christ's ambassadors, as if God was making His appeal through us, that we want them to be reconciled to God. So the ultimate is not just for them to be connected through us, but for them to be fully reconciled to God, so they have their own relationship. So as we're communicating with a new disciple, really what we want to focus on is we want to focus on this connection. We want them to be able to hear from God, and then to respond to God. So to listen and obey again and again. Because ultimately we want them all to be like Abraham, who heard God's voice, and even though no one else was telling him what to do, he knew it was the Lord, and then he responded, and out of his obedience, the whole nation of Israel opened up. So in our goal, we call this the Facilitation Triangle. We respond to God. One of the things that we do as we respond to God is to reach out to new disciples, but in our discipleship, our ultimate focus is always going to be here. Because we want it to be the case that if we were to die, that they would have such a strong connection with God that they don't need us to hear from God. That they're priests too. They're part of the priesthood of believers. So we want to always focus on, is this disciple that God is reaching out to through me, developing their own connection with God through a history of listening and responding.
What's up, y'all? So again, this week we revisited the Facilitation Triangle, which really builds a foundation of everything we would hope God is trying to accomplish in a disciple's life. At the very basis foundation, that they would be able to listen to God's voice and to respond to what He says. So, like Mark said, discipleship is not simply sitting across from somebody and telling them what to do, but it's really trying to, as a disciple ourselves who listen and respond to God, our job is to help that other disciple or group of disciples, a church, hear and respond to God for themselves. What is God saying to you in that circumstance? How is God revealing His character or nature? What passage of Scripture is God laying on your heart in the midst of that situation that's difficult? So really helping the person we're discipling self-feed, hear God's voice and respond to Him for Himself. So last week, Mark gave you a challenge. The challenge was to train another disciple in this very tool and to facilitate these kind of questions, helping them understand what questions to ask. So this coming week, we want the person that you train to train it back to you. So I'm going to erase this right here. The goal would be to go back to that person that you trained and have the disciple that you trained train you back. So it's interesting in our culture, we believe that somebody gets something if we just tell them or even train them, but really, if you really want to see if the person you are training or discipling is getting what you were training them in, take that leap of faith and say, all right, I'm going to shut up and you are going to teach me back what I taught you. In that's the only way that you can know how to coach. Because if you can give feedback after that person who you've trained trains you back, that's going to move mountains and helping them grow into who God has called them to become. So, yes, find the person you trained and have them train you back if they haven't forgotten.